If you're doing General Training IELTS, you're actually quite lucky because task 1 is very straightforward. There are just a few small things that you need to be aware of, and that will mean that you can definitely get the score that you deserve. In this lesson, I will show you step by step what you need to do from looking at the question until finishing your answer. I will help you avoid the most common mistakes. I will show you some sample answers so you understand exactly how to do this. And I have a practice activity for you at the end of the lesson. My name is Lara Ryan. I've been an IELTS examiner, I've been an IELTS teacher at the British Council, I've been helping IELTS students for over a decade, and I am the founder of Complete Test Success. Now, of course, the first thing you need to understand is what the different parts of the question are, so let's look at how to analyse the question first. Now, what you see here is exactly the same in every Task 1 question, and it just tells you what you need to do in general. But at the bottom here, you will see that it says how to begin your letter. It says "Dear" and a blank space for you to fill in the name of the person that you're writing to. If you're writing an informal letter, you will just write the person's first name like this, "Dear John." But if you're writing a formal letter, you will need to write Mr. or Mrs. and the person's surname. In both cases, don't forget to put a comma at the end. However, in those two situations, you actually know the name of the person, but there is a situation where you're writing to maybe a shop manager or the manager of a hotel and you wouldn't know their actual name. In that case, the bottom of the question will say, begin your letter as follows, "Dear Sir or Madam," and you just copy this exactly into the start of your letter. So what you just looked at is the same in every question, but inside the box is the information you need to know exactly what to write in your letter. At the top, the question will outline a situation, and this just tells you the context in which you're writing in. This one says, you have just learned of plans to build a new international airport in your local area. The key here is to not contradict that situation in any way. So if for some reason you wrote in your letter about the airport already being built, but the question said that the airport was being planned, in that case you would have made a big mistake and your task achievement score would suffer as a result. The next part of the question is here. It says, write a letter to your local council in this particular question. And this is where we find out if we're going to write a formal or an informal letter. If the question says write a letter to a friend, you will write an informal letter, and in all other circumstances, you will write a formal letter. Now, if you're unsure about how to write in a formal or an informal tone, my previous lesson covered that in detail, so make sure to check that out. The next part of the question is here. It says in your letter, and then there are 3 prompts. The first prompt says explain how you found out about the plan. The second prompt says, describe why this will be a problem for your local area. And the third prompt says, suggest a possible solution. So in our letter, we're going to write 3 paragraphs, and each paragraph will respond to one of the prompts. So paragraph 1 will be about the first prompt, paragraph 2 will be about the second prompt, and paragraph 3 will be about the third prompt. And in the first sentence of each paragraph, you should respond directly to the prompt. This is beneficial because it means that you won't need to plan your answer in advance. It's also helpful because you're 100% sure that your paragraph has achieved its most minimal requirement. After that first sentence, you just expand the paragraph until it's about 60 words long. And the key here is to stay focused on exactly what the prompt told you to discuss. So for example, in the first prompt here, it says explain how you found out about the plan. And if you discuss anything besides this exact prompt, that will mean a reduction in your task achievement score. Finally, you don't want to mix up the information from one prompt in the wrong paragraph. So for example, when you're writing paragraph 1, make sure that none of the information required for paragraph 2 or for paragraph 3 ends up in that paragraph. And then finally, you just sign off the letter and you're finished. We will look at how to write a formal and an informal sign-off later in this lesson. Once we've finished reading all the different parts of the question, it's time to write the answer. So here, of course, we're going to start the letter as the question instructed with Dear Sir or Madam. So here's the start of my letter, Dear Sir or Madam. Next, we jump straight to the first prompt. Explain how you found out about the plan. And remember, the key here is that I need to respond directly to this prompt in the very first sentence. So we can say, my brother-in-law has recently disclosed to me that you intend to build an international airport in the Rockwell area. So now the reader knows exactly how I found out. And also, you can assume shared knowledge between you and the person reading the letter. If they are in your local county council, they will know where the Rockwell area is, so you don't need to explain that to them. And for the rest of the paragraph, I just need to develop this in some way and make sure that I'm only discussing how I found out. He discovered this as he is a contractor and was requested to submit a quotation for constructing part of the terminal. Although he was instructed not to share this information, he decided it was important that I know. Now, it can be a bit tricky to develop that idea for a full 60 words, but the thing is, it doesn't really matter what you say. All that matters is that you stay focused on the prompt. So then we move on to the second prompt. Describe why this will be a problem for your local area. And again, in the first sentence, make sure to respond directly to the prompt. This will have a serious negative effect on my profits and the profits of the other farmers in our community. And then just develop that idea. As I'm sure you are aware, we are mostly dairy farmers in this area, and there is a long history of cattle producing less milk when they are exposed to the noise of low-flying aircraft. And that brings us to the final prompt. Suggest a possible solution. One option that would minimize the adverse effects of your plan is for the runway to run from northwest to southeast. That would mean that the airplanes would not be taking off or flying into land directly over our pastures, and therefore would reduce the risk of our livestock being affected by your decision. And finally, we just need to sign off. Because this is a formal letter, we will write yours sincerely. But if it had been an informal letter, we would write best wishes. So here's my sign off. Make sure to put a comma at the end of yours sincerely. And again, because it's a formal letter, I will write Lar Ryan, my first name and my surname. However, if it's an informal letter that you're writing, you will just put your first name. And then, of course, as you will with all writing, you're going to proofread your answer at the end. And you should hope to have somewhere about 5 minutes to check for vocabulary mistakes, check for grammar mistakes, fix as many of those as possible, but you might also find that you've used some words more often than you should have, and you can replace those with synonyms during this time that you're proofreading. So let's say you're currently at a band 7 and you need to get a band 8. What can you do to improve your scores? Well, more importantly than anything is that you improve your vocabulary and you improve your grammar. The ability to communicate clearly is going to be the most essential thing when you're improving your scores. And also factor in my previous lesson about formal and informal vocabulary, because it's really easy to make a small mistake with the tone and that will reduce your overall score. After that, you just need to practice writing these letters. And in the beginning, a mistake that a lot of students make is that they try to write under exam conditions. And that means finishing your answer in 20 minutes or less, but that's putting too much pressure on you. In the beginning, all you want to do is focus on quality. Can you write the standard of letter that you need? And that's all. Once you can do that, you can start to focus on doing it in exam conditions and in 20 minutes or less. So when you're practicing, once you finish writing a letter, I have a list of questions that you can ask yourself to try and determine any mistakes you've made that you can learn from. The first of those questions is, did you use the correct tone? So it might be some small mistake you've made with the grammar or with the vocabulary, and if you can notice that, that will help you to improve. Secondly, is the answer consistent with the question situation? And by that I mean, did you write anything in your letter that contradicts what the question says, such as saying that the airport has already been built, where in the question it said that it was just a plan? Number 3, did you begin the letter appropriately? 4, does the first sentence of each paragraph directly address the prompt? 5, does paragraph 1 discuss the first prompt and nothing else? 6, does paragraph 2 discuss the second prompt and nothing else? 7, does paragraph 3 discuss the third prompt and nothing else? 8, did you sign off appropriately? Of course, you will want the answer to all these questions to be yes, but you need to be really honest and really strict with yourself when you're checking your writing. Because if any of the answers is no, that's really an ideal situation where you found a mistake that you can use and improve on your letter writing in the next practice that you do. Of course, there's also the scenario that you're making a mistake but you don't know it's a mistake. And I can help you with that in my free live feedback lessons. So make sure to sign up for those with the link in the video description. So before I show you the practice activity, I want to run through one more question with you just to make sure you're 100% clear about how to do this. So here's the question. Firstly, we'll read the situation. Your friend has agreed to take care of your home while you're away on a business trip. And of course, if we write anything like we're on a holiday rather than a business trip, that will really affect our overall score. That means just make sure to stick exactly to this context. The next part says write a letter to your friend, and this indicates that we need to write an informal letter. With that, we're ready to write the answer. So we'll look at the first prompt to see what to include in the first paragraph. Thank him or her for agreeing to help. However, we need to be aware of what's included in paragraphs 2 and 3 as well, so that we don't include any of the information we need for those in this first paragraph. The second prompt says, describe what you need him or her to do. The third prompt says, explain how he or she can contact you while you're away. So we'll just make sure that none of that information ends up in paragraph 1. So it's an informal letter. We'll start with, Dear Jane, just the first name of my friend, and then the response to the first prompt. Thanks so much for agreeing to look after my house for the next week. So again, we've responded directly to the prompt, but this is actually one of the trickiest ones to develop because I've already said thank you. What else am I going to say? But we do have to stick to the prompt and say something about thanking our friend, so develop it in any way you can to show your appreciation for the person doing this for you. So next I'll put, I know you're already busy, so it's a huge deal that you're willing to use the little bit of time you have to help me with this. I definitely won't forget it, and I owe you a big favour now, so make sure to just ask me whenever you think of anything that I can help you with. Now, if you're in the IELTS test and you get a question that asks you to thank somebody, you should not just repeat what you've seen in this sample answer. You need to look at the context, look at the situation, and respond appropriately. So never learn something in advance of the IELTS test that you intend to use regardless of the question. So then we move to the second prompt, describe what you need him or her to do, and we will not include any of the information required for the last paragraph. So the second paragraph says, while I'm away, please water all of the plants once every 2 or 3 days. And then we just need to develop this until the paragraph is about 60 words long. You'll find a jug under the sink in the kitchen and you can just use normal tap water. The ones on the balcony are a bit high though, so you'll probably need to get the stool from the dressing table in the bedroom to reach those. And that leaves us with the final prompt, explain how he or she can contact you while you're away. If you need me for any reason while I'm gone, you'll be able to call the reception desk at the hotel where I'm staying and leave a message for me there. You will find their business card in the envelope with this letter, and you can use the phone number that I've circled in red on the back. So again, it doesn't really matter how you develop that response as long as it stays focused on the prompt. And then I need to sign off. Because this is an informal letter, I will say best wishes, don't forget the comma, and then Lar, just my first name. Okay, so if you're finding this lesson useful, make sure to click like to give me some good feedback and share this lesson with your friends, your family members, or anybody else you know who's doing the IELTS test. So now it's time to look at the practice activity, and what I have is a sample answer with some mistakes, and I want you to find the mistakes in the answer. First, let's look at the question that the answer is responding to. Your manager tasked you with organising a farewell party for one of your colleagues who is retiring. Write a letter to your manager. In your letter, describe the venue you booked. Explain why the venue is suitable. Tell him or her what gift you purchased for your colleague. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the sample answer that has mistakes in it. I want you to pause the video until you have found all of the mistakes, and then when you're ready, press play and I will tell you what those mistakes are. So this is the answer. So before I actually show you these mistakes, I just want to let you know that there are a total of 8. So if you haven't already found all 8, you should pause the video again and try to find them now. So let's look at the mistakes. The first one is up here where it says Mr. and we don't write the full word, we write the abbreviation. So it should be MR. Or if you're using American English, it's MR with a dot. The next mistake is the first paragraph because it has not been developed enough. The paragraph should be about 60 words, not exactly, a bit more or a bit less is fine, but about 60 words. This paragraph here is only 29 words and that is much too short, and you would not get a high task achievement score with even one paragraph as short as this one. The third mistake is here where it says venues. And if you've already completed my previous lesson on formal and informal tone, you will know that we do not use contractions for a formal letter. So this should actually be the venue is. Moving on to the fourth mistake, and it's the whole final sentence of paragraph 2. I have already informed all the staff members that the party will be on Friday, and I will make them aware of the location later today. So you'll remember that the second prompt was to explain why the venue is suitable, so the full paragraph has to be about that, whereas the sentence that we just looked at is not related to the prompt. Therefore, it is irrelevant. Now, this mistake, where the second half of the paragraph is irrelevant, is just as significant as the first mistake, where the paragraph was incomplete. So instead of this, we would have to stay focused on the topic and say something like, furthermore, there is ample parking for all attending, which means that dinner will be served as early as possible as per your instructions. And the next mistake is the first sentence of the final paragraph. The prompt said to tell him or her the gift that you bought, but this sentence does not do that. It talks about purchasing the gift, but it does not say what was purchased. Remember, you must always respond directly to the prompt in the first sentence. So we have 3 more mistakes left. The next one is got, and got is fine in an informal letter, but for a formal letter like this, it's not suitable, and we would need to say bought or purchased instead. The next mistake is where it says birthday gift here, and the question was about a retirement, not a birthday. And remember, if you contradict the situation described in the question, your task achievement score will suffer. Instead, we would need to say retirement gift. And the final mistake is down here, where I just put my first name, but it's a formal letter, so I have to put my first name and my surname, Lar Ryan. So let me know in the comments how many of those mistakes that you found by yourself. Also, my next lesson will be supporting you with the IELTS speaking test, so make sure that you click subscribe on my channel or like on my page so that you get a notification when that lesson is ready.